Yeah, thanks. Not that tall. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. When I hear about the things that we heard about yesterday and that we're hearing about today, a lot of times in my head, I'm like, so what are we doing? We need to make things happen. And there are some things happening. Obviously, we're hearing about those today. And my focus is on the forests. Most of the Rogue Basin is forested, if you haven't noticed that already. But if you look at the land use, that Oregon DEQ has a great map of that, very largely forested. And 2/3 of the Rogue Basin is federal land. So it's a good opportunity to have a big effect on how we manage our federal lands and what we can do in our federal lands. So some of the projects I'm talking about focus on that. We work with the federal agencies. The collaborative does often for projects. So that will be more of my focus on that side of things. I'm talking about a lot of different projects in a very short amount of time. So I'm going to point some people out in the audience, and I'm going to have some names and emails up of people that you can talk to get more information, because I'm barely going to be able to scratch the surface on these. And there's some really great things happening, and it would be great to have your involvement and support on those so that we can have more great things happening at a greater scale. And a lot of these projects are pilot projects or smaller scale projects that are working toward having landscape scale projects, meaning greater than 10,000 acres, ideally more than that, so that there can be a greater effect and we can have more resilient forests, healthier communities, and the things that we enjoy from forests, whether it be recreational or aesthetic, or the things that we need, like clean air, clean water, particularly as our climate changes and things modify. So the collaborative put out the Rogue Basin Action Plan for Resilient Forests and Watersheds in a Changing Climate, the end of 2013. I'm the author on that, but there are a lot of other people that contributed to the plan. And within that plan, so this built upon the plan by GEOS in 2008, but this came up with goals and actionable items that we could do. And a lot of the projects that I talk about today meet those goals. I'm not insinuating that they evolved out of this plan, because that's not the case. Some of them were already happening, but they are meeting the goals, which is good, because it means they're making progress towards these goals that we outlined. And the way those goals were developed is we did an assessment on the forest, the water, the economy of vulnerabilities. We met with different people, public specialists, had them rank what they thought the risks were, the potential of threats with climate change, and then our capacity to actually do something about that, about those risks and vulnerabilities. And that's how we came up with our goals. These are the key stressors that were identified in the plan. We've talked about these a lot already, so I don't really need to go into them. Hotter, drier summers, more fires, less snow. And I wrote the goals down, but I'm not going to go through all the verbiage. Basically, goals 1 and 2 are around reducing fire risk and severity and promoting critical habitat and species diversity in our forests and where we live. And the projects listed below, on the bottom there, are bulleted. These are projects that are happening that address this goal, and I'm going to go into these projects a little bit after these slides. Goal 2 is around water quality and quantity and protecting that. I'm not going to go into this as much because I'm not talking about water, but Sam Whitridge, I saw you here. Where did you go? There's Sam. He's a good person to talk to about these, especially the Rogue Basin Partnership. They're trying to bring watershed councils together to have more of a landscape scale approach toward water issues and implementing the Rogue Basin Partnership Action Plan for prioritizing areas to focus. The WISE project you already heard about from Steve. So those are some good people to talk to. Is anyone from the Freshwater Trust here? Oh, the Freshwater Trust. I'll have to talk to them about that. But they're doing some great work too with the city of Medford on the Rogue River Restoration Project. And then our last goal is to provide quantifiable ecological restoration and economic support for practices by incorporating ecosystem services to identify and focus on priority areas. Meaning the things that we get from nature, the things that we enjoy from nature, nature's benefits, into project plans and developing economic rationale for plans based on those things that we care about as a community. So the first project I'm going to talk about is the Ashland Forest Resiliency Stewardship Project, which I will from here on out refer to as AFR, and if you've ever heard that, that's what that's referring to. It's a 10-year stewardship project. I believe on-the-ground operations started in 2010, but there's a lot of planning before that, meeting with community members. Mark Shibley did a social science survey, learning about what community members cared about, and their knowledge base on the forest conditions. So the key objectives were to reduce fire risk, help with insects and disease, promote old growth trees, which helps with carbon sequestration, restore a healthy forest ecosystem, and protect those watershed values. And this is in Ashland, obviously, and is still ongoing. And they developed watershed values from public input. They did a lot of legwork on this, talking with the public, which is really great. I really love it when projects do that, because that's how you get good support. So human life and property, older forests, clean drinking water, wildlife habitat, ecological sustainability, as well as other priorities surrounding habitat, water quality, and large trees. So these are people to talk to if you want to learn more about this. Carrie Metlin, I saw you too. Are you here? There's Carrie. Raise your hand again. You're just, there you go. Carrie's name's going to come up a lot. I don't know. I don't think these other people are here right now, but they're great people to talk to. Anyone else involved in AFR that's here? Raise your hand. All right, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so those are people to talk to more about these projects. And as I go through these, I meant to talk about this before. Mayor Piercy brought up a really good point, and I like to reiterate this too. And I've actually done social science work around this and found this to be scientifically true, that it really does just take one person to get a good project happening and to be successful. It takes one person that cares, one person that's passionate, one person that asks other people to join them, and you can make these things happen. And Vicki Sturdivant, who I worked with, and I like to call these people on-the-ground warriors. There's many of you out here today, and hopefully there'll be more after the end of this. But all these people I'm pointing out, these are on-the-ground warriors. These are people that are making these things happen, that are really passionate about this. So, you know, ask them questions, but maybe give them a thank you too, pat on the back, keep them working on these things. The Table Rocks Oak Climate Adaptation Project is the next project that I'll be talking about. It's a part of a landscape-scale collaborative effort to restore declining oak ecosystems and increase their resilience to climate change in the Rogue Basin. So this is an initial project. There are going to be more projects that these organizations on the bottom here have worked to find funding for or have funded. And there's going to be more of these styles of projects happening throughout the Rogue Basin. And beyond the Rogue Basin a little bit, I believe. Oh no, okay, I gotta hurry up. So using fire in the landscape, using fire to fight fire, restoring some natural conditions, restoring oak habitat. I thought this was really neat. One approach that they did is they took climate envelopes, climate models, which you never know exactly how things are gonna turn out with these models, but they're informative. So to decrease the uncertainty, they took 3 different models, overlapped the degree of likelihood of oak in the future with climate change, and from that developed where they believe oak would be with the agreement between those models. So Carrie, again, is a good person to talk to about this. There are some other people here, so this is going to be on the website. I've got to hurry up. So, the Rogue Basin Cohesive Forest Restoration Strategy is not a project, it's a strategy based on forest restoration principles that Marty Main talked about yesterday. And the objectives are to reduce fire risk to the community, address landscape resilience, protect existing and promoting future northern spotted owl habitat, and fire resistance and climate resilient settings. So this project took a different approach. From the Oak project, they brought people in and talked about high-value resources and assets, so the things that people cared about, the things people wanted to prioritize, the things people value. And they did some number crunching and came up with what people wanted to focus on most. They also did fire mapping for fire behavior and risk. They did landscape resilience mapping. And then climate resilient mapping, but not with climate models. This was based on something put forth by the Nature Conservancy. Steve Buttrick's done a lot of it on the West Coast. Carrie can answer questions about this too. And they were able to come up with a way of looking at the geology, the elevation, and the latitude of regions where they could very accurately estimate the number of different species that would be there. And so using that information, they believe with scientific evidence that as climate changes, they could still predict the number of different species that might be there. And so by using that, even as species shift or change with the changing climate, you can still figure out where the areas are that are going to be functional habitats in terms of being able to have a multitude of species living there. And so where should we focus our efforts, or how could we make places increase that ability or capacity for biodiversity? And so that's how they focused on where to go. And here are the priority areas, I have to stop soon, that they developed out of that, and that's being used in the Applegate and some other areas. And there's a lot happening in the Applegate AMA as well. Jack Shipley, are you here? He was here. There he is, back there. He can talk to you about the Applegate AMA. But they are using this to help prioritize where to go. And I have to stop now, so thank you.